I never thought the person to push me out of my life's work would share my blood. But there I was, standing in the executive suite of Albright and Nova Marketing, packing away 7 years of my life into a brown box that suddenly looked too small. "You've got 20 minutes, Ivy," said Terrence Albright, my uncle and the company's CEO, tapping his Rolex as if I were an inconvenience. "Vivian starts today as VP of Strategic Development. She's better suited for where the company's headed." Vivian, my younger sister, the same Vivian who flunked out of her MBA program and spent 2 years traveling to find herself on my parents' dime. I smiled politely, the kind of smile that hides a slow-burning fire. They thought they were writing my final chapter, but they didn't know I'd been drafting the sequel for years. I carefully packed away the awards I'd earned: Top Growth Strategist, Best Regional Campaign, National Impact Award. Each one a symbol of nights I didn't sleep, clients I salvaged, and deadlines I bled for. I placed them gently beneath a framed photo of me and our late grandfather, Arthur Ellison. He used to tell me, "True power is quiet, Ivy. It doesn't shout, it signs checks." I was 16 when I first shadowed his real estate deals. 23 when I used my inheritance from him to buy my first property in downtown Charleston, just a block from this very building. And by 28 I owned the entire side street under an LLC, called Ellis Row Partners. No one at Albright and Nova knew, not even my sister. "Don't forget your badge," Terrence added, smug as ever. "Security protocol." I handed it over without flinching. "Sure," I said coolly. "Just make sure Vivian reads the clause in the lease. Ellis Row sent out a notice yesterday." He waved me off, distracted. "She'll handle it. She's got a fresh take. Something you never had." I wanted to laugh. The notice wasn't about rent. It was a 72-hour lease termination trigger for unethical restructuring, including nepotism and employment discrimination. Clause 114B. Written specifically for a moment like this. They thought I was just another employee, but I was their landlord, and I was done being quiet. As I exited the building, Vivian stood in the lobby in a brand new coral pantsuit, flanked by her boyfriend, some lifestyle influencer with a vape pen and no resume. "Ivy," she said, pretending to sound sorry. "No hard feelings, okay? We're still family." I stared at her, letting the silence speak. Our parents had always said family first too, but only when it was convenient. They drained my college savings to bail out Vivian's credit card debt, took my apartment to help fund her failed business, and now they'd handed her my career. What they didn't understand is that I wasn't walking away in defeat. I was stepping into position. I drove home to the quiet townhouse tucked behind the main street, nothing flashy but paid in full. There, in my private office, I opened my laptop. Naomi, my legal counsel, had already messaged me. "Lease breach filed. Eviction process will start Monday unless reversed." I responded with one word: proceed. I didn't care about their smug faces or their rebranded office. I cared about justice, about showing them that you don't erase someone who helped build your empire, especially when they own the foundation. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. "Ivy, be gracious. Vivian needs this chance. It's just business." I stared at it, then put the phone down. Business. They were about to find out what business looked like when the ground under their feet didn't belong to them anymore, because I wasn't done, not by a long shot. And come Monday morning, Albright and Nova was about to learn what it means to betray the wrong woman. Monday morning arrived with skies as gray as the mood simmering at Albright and Nova. I parked a block away from the building, watching from behind tinted windows as Vivian stepped out of a luxury Uber, heels clicking confidently against the sidewalk. Her hair was perfectly curled, her smile untouched by reality. She thought she'd arrived, thought she'd won. But while she was sipping almond lattes and posing for photos at her new desk, Naomi's courier was sliding a thick envelope across the marble reception counter, marked, "Urgent. Legal action pending." The moment had come. The eviction clause had been activated, and the countdown had begun. By 10:00 a.m. I was in a cafe across the street, laptop open, watching emails go out to every employee. Due to a lease violation, Albright and Nova must vacate premises within 72 hours. Effective immediately, building access will be suspended after Thursday at noon. Panic doesn't arrive all at once, it trickles. First a few confused faces, then managers whispering behind closed doors, then Terrence's bellowing voice echoing down the hall. They had no idea who Ellis Row Partners was, but they would soon. My sister's voice carried over a call she had on speaker by the window. No, Mom, everything's fine. Ivy's just having a moment. I'm sure it'll blow over. I took a sip of my espresso. She still thought I was playing chess with her beginner checkers. She didn't know about the recordings of her, Elaine and Terrence mapping out how to force me out. She didn't know about the surveillance footage of them mocking my mental health during a strategy session. She didn't know I'd been documenting every hostile maneuver for over a year. Not because I planned to use it, but because I knew one day I might need to. That afternoon, a building manager called Vivian directly. Her voice cracked. You said this was handled. You said we had 5 years on this lease. Vivian fumbled for words. I thought we did. Terrence stormed into the lobby, a red flush across his neck. Get Ellis Rowe's rep on the phone. Who the hell owns this place? We've got contracts, clients, this is sabotage. I smiled to myself. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I was cleaning house. I was reclaiming my name, my work, my future. The next text came from Vivian. No greeting, just, you're really doing this? I didn't answer, because the truth was, I wasn't doing anything. They had pulled the trigger. I just happened to have built the land beneath their collapsing tower. They thought kicking me out was their final move, but I had already bought the board, and they were only just realizing there were pieces on it. I opened a folder marked Media, filled with screenshots, timelines, and witness statements. Tomorrow, the public would know what I had kept hidden out of respect for the company, for the name, for the family. But that respect had a limit, and when they crossed it, they lost the protection of my silence. Tomorrow, the truth would speak, loudly. The next morning, at exactly 7:30 a.m., an email blast went out from Ellis Rowe Partners. It was brief, professional, and absolutely lethal. Effective immediately, Albright and Nova's lease is terminated due to verified violations of Clause 14b, unethical restructuring practices, nepotism, and hostile workplace behavior. Attached was a PDF labeled Summary of Supporting Evidence, and within minutes it began to spread. By 8 Sovereign AM, my inbox lit up with news alerts. Marketing giant faces eviction over ethics scandal. VP role handed to CEO's niece sparks backlash. The city's most followed business newsletter picked it up. By 8:15, phones at Albright and Nova were ringing off the hook. I watched from my car across the street, calm and collected. My fingers traced the edge of my coffee cup as chaos rippled inside the glass walls of their office. Terrence shouted into his phone while trying to calm a client in person. Vivian had her head down, scrolling furiously through headlines, and Elaine, Vivian's silent partner in my ousting, was pacing in heels too high for stress. The building, once pristine and controlled, now pulsed with panic. And still, not a single one of them had realized I was Ellis Rowe. Not yet. The best part of revenge isn't the explosion. It's the moment before, when the air shifts and people begin to understand just how deep they're in. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to gloat. All I had to do was let the documentation speak. Voice recordings of Vivian scheming with Elaine, meeting transcripts, emails with metadata, employee testimonies, a full legal report filed months ago by HR, conveniently ignored, now resurfaced in a very public way. No embellishments, just facts, laid bare. My mother texted me again. Ivy, what are you doing? This is our family. Stop before it's too late. I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. Family? Where was that sentiment when they cut me loose without warning? When they lied to my face and told me to take one for the team? I responded with a screenshot of the legal clause she once told me was a waste of time. No words, just the law she thought would never be needed, now shaping the end of their empire. By noon, I received a message from Naomi. They've requested a settlement. Do you want to negotiate? I stared out the windshield as clouds gathered above the Charleston skyline. They still didn't understand. This wasn't about money. It was about recognition, about restoring what they tried to steal with pretty titles and soft betrayals. I typed back, "We'll discuss terms after they move out." That night, I walked the block I owned. I passed the printing house I leased to a local artist, the cafe that had become a neighborhood favorite, and finally the centerpiece, Albright and Nova. The building that tried to bury me now stood exposed, its shiny windows reflecting nothing but the storm they called down upon themselves. A building I had loved, a job I had mastered, a family that had discarded me, and all of it was about to change. The next morning, the air outside Albright and Nova felt heavier. A protest of sorts had gathered, disgruntled employees, confused clients, and local journalists, all swarming the sidewalk like bees stirred from a hive. I stood across the street, out of view, listening as a field reporter read from her script. An anonymous landlord has evicted the once powerful agency amid claims of internal sabotage, nepotism, and ethics violations. Sources say the landlord may have ties to the former VP, Ivy Ellison. Ties. That was generous. I didn't have ties to the landlord, I was the landlord, and they were about to realize that fact in full, living color. Vivian finally cracked. Around 10:00 a.m., she marched into the lobby with her heels in her hand, mascara smudged from tears. Her voice echoed down the marble floor. Where is she? Where's Ivy? She looked around like I might appear out of the shadows. She's doing this to humiliate us. She always wanted to be the favorite. She never could stand me succeeding. I smiled in disbelief. Succeeding? She thought this circus was success? That stealing a title was the same as earning a legacy. She didn't get it, and maybe she never would. Inside Naomi's office just a block away, we finalized our next steps. We've got everything documented, she said. If we pursue civil damages, they'll be forced to open their financial records. Could take them down entirely. This wasn't just about watching them fall, it was about making space for something better to rise. Give them until noon tomorrow, I said. Then we escalate. Naomi nodded, and I could see she understood. Revenge was tempting, but justice had better timing, and this story was far from finished. Terrence finally called. His voice was smaller now, brittle around the edges. Ivy, we didn't know. You should have told us you were the property owner. We could have talked this out. I let the silence speak. Then softly, you didn't think I was worth talking to when you gave my job away. He stumbled over excuses, apologies that sounded like scripts written under duress. Let's not drag the family through this, he added, as if the dragging hadn't started the moment they betrayed me. It's not about dragging the family, I replied. It's about reminding them what happens when they mistake silence for weakness. At sunset, I received a voicemail from Vivian. Her voice was ragged. You win, okay? Just stop. I get it now. I never should have taken the job, but please, don't destroy the company. Don't ruin Dad. Her voice cracked at the end, and for a moment, I felt something close to sadness, but it passed, because this wasn't about winning, it was about restoring what they shattered, and they had to sit in the wreckage for just a little while longer. I looked out my window as lights flickered off in the Albright and Nova building. The countdown ticked louder. Tomorrow was Thursday, the final day. The building would be locked down, their access revoked, and everything they thought was secure would belong to someone else. To me, they spent years acting like I was in their way, but the truth was, I built the road they walked on, and now I was closing it. Thursday arrived draped in silver rain, soft but steady, like the calm before a courtroom verdict. I arrived early, watching from the cafe across the street as the final hours drained from Albright and Nova's lease. Employees buzzed in and out with cardboard boxes and nervous glances, the air thick with confusion and dread. Terrence stood on the steps, phone glued to his ear, face pale as if the weight of years was catching up all at once. Vivian sat slumped in the back of her car, staring at her phone with swollen eyes. And still, they hadn't seen me. I was the storm, walking quietly in their shadow. At exactly noon, building security executed the final command, locks changed, badges disabled, alarms armed. One by one, the access lights blinked red as confused executives tried to re-enter their former empire. The silence that followed was loud. Then, Terrence spotted me through the glass cafe wall. He rushed outside into the rain, waving his arms. Ivy, wait please. I stood, stepped outside and met him halfway on the slick sidewalk. You made your point, he said, voice trembling. You own the building, we were wrong. But can we find a solution? Can we fix this? I pulled a folder from my leather bag, sealed with the Ellis Rowe stamp. There's nothing to fix, I said quietly, just something to learn. I handed him the formal notice. Termination upheld, eviction enforced, and lease reassigned. You wanted to teach me about sacrifice, about loyalty, but you forgot who taught me about ownership. His hands shook as he read. You'll never work in this industry again, he muttered. No agency will touch you after this. I stepped closer, unbothered. You're assuming I still want to work for agencies. I build things now, Terrence. I don't beg to stay in them. Vivian appeared beside him, mascara streaking down her cheeks. You could have warned me. You didn't have to humiliate me. I shook my head. Humiliation is public. What I gave you was private consequence. I've stayed quiet your whole life, Vivian. When you wrecked my things, when you lied to our parents, when you took everything I worked for, I didn't raise my voice then, either, but I took notes. She reached for my arm again, but I stepped back. You wanted the crown, but you forgot who laid the stones for the castle. Across the street, Naomi waved from her office window. I nodded once. Everything was finalized. Ellis Rowe had already signed a new tenant for the space, a non-profit incubator for women-led startups. Clean, ethical, and forward-thinking, a place where no one had to trade blood ties for business favors. This isn't about revenge, I told them softly. It's about creating a future that doesn't come at the cost of someone else's worth. Terrence opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The weight of every decision he made, without me, was finally showing on his face. The rain started falling harder. I turned to leave, walking past the building that had once been mine in name only. Now, it was mine in every way that mattered. The employees watched from the windows. Some nodded, a few clapped softly. They knew, they had seen what I endured, and they understood the power in rising, without ever raising your voice. By Friday morning, Albright and Nova was gone. The office space sat quiet, cleared out, save for a few forgotten plaques, and a wilted bouquet in what had been Vivian's desk corner. The glossy sign above the glass doors had been removed. No more branding, no more legacy that didn't include me. In its place was a temporary banner, future site of the Ellison Center for Women in Innovation, a name that meant something, a purpose that was earned, not given, and certainly not stolen. The press had a field day. Headlines buzzed across the city and social media. Former VP evicts her own family. Turns office into startup hub. Ellison's quiet power move sends shockwaves through industry. But the article that made me pause was one from a local paper. They tried to replace her. She replaced them entirely. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about rewriting the rules they always said couldn't be changed. I didn't just leave the game, I built a new one. And people were starting to see it. Vivian messaged again. I'm leaving town. It's all ruined. You destroyed everything. I stared at the message a while, thinking back to the day she smirked as I packed my things. The way she called my ambition cold. The way our parents told me to be the bigger person. Funny how they never said that to her. I didn't respond. Not with words. I didn't need to. My answer was in the silence of a locked building, and the contract signed under my name. My answer was in every woman I fund in that new center. My answer was already echoing louder than her voice ever could. That afternoon, I met with the new tenants, 6 founders, all women of color, all first-time entrepreneurs. They brought notebooks, laptops, and a kind of hunger I recognized in myself, years ago. One of them looked around the space, wide-eyed. It's hard to believe someone like you owns all this, she said. I smiled. That's the point, I told her. They never believe it until it's already too late. And maybe, just maybe, that disbelief is our biggest weapon, because they let their guard down. They look past us. And while they're busy underestimating, we're building. When I got home, my grandmother was waiting on the porch, with tea and that same knowing glint in her eyes. You did it, she said simply. I nodded. Wasn't easy. She handed me a small wooden box. Inside was my grandfather's original deed to the first property he ever bought. Handwritten, dated 9. He always said, she murmured, it's not about being loud, it's about being rooted. Buildings fall, but foundations, they last generations. I ran my fingers across the paper. I understood now, it wasn't just about land, it was about legacy. The final message came that evening, from my father. You went too far, Ivy. Family doesn't do this to each other. I stared at the words a long time before replying. Exactly, family doesn't. I hit send, then turned off my phone. Because the truth is, they never saw me coming. They thought I was disposable, replaceable, quiet, but they forgot that quiet doesn't mean weak. It means watchful, strategic, patient. And when I struck, it wasn't rage. It was precision. It was a woman taking back what she built with her own hands and vision. And now? Now I don't just own the street. I own the future.